In America today, we aren't just facing a political crisis, we're facing a crisis of the ego. It starts small. You see it in the workplace, you see it in the streets, and eventually it swallows the highest offices in the land. It's a psychological shift that begins with a simple title. The moment someone is handed a badge, a clipboard, or a podium, their perception of reality begins to warp. They stop looking at people as peers and start seeing them as variables to be fixed or managed. We've all seen it. You knew someone who was a decent human being, someone you could trust. But then came the promotion. A sliver of authority, a small taste of leverage, and the empathy gap set in. It's a neurological trap. Research shows that as power increases, the brain's ability to mirror the feelings of others actually decreases. Suddenly, the person who used to grab a coffee with is a stranger hiding behind a lead title, convinced that their $1 raise makes them a different species than you. This is small authority syndrome, the delusion that a title gives you the right to own another person's time and dignity. This isn't just happening on the shop floor. It's the blueprint of our national politics. When we look at figures like Trump or organizations like ICE, we see the hubris syndrome in full effect. It's the belief that the law is a suggestion for others but a burden for them. You see it in the rants and the rhetoric, a leader who has become so isolated by yes men that he begins to believe every lie he invented. When power becomes limitless, the ego stops serving the people and starts serving itself. They aren't just ignoring the law, they believe they are the law. The most dangerous part of this delusion is when they tell you to ignore your own eyes and ears. They tell you that Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother who had just dropped her son off at school, was a domestic terrorist. They claim she weaponized her car, but the footage shows her smiling through her window, telling the agent, "I'm not mad at you." You see her car turning away at a crawl before 3 shots fired into her head and chest. The delusion is the administration trying to convince you that a mother's kindness was a threat. Then look at Alex Peretti, a VA ICU nurse who dedicated his life to serving veterans. On January 24th, he stepped in to help a woman being shoved by agents. They called him an assassin, but the video shows him being pepper sprayed with his empty hand raised. They wrestled him to the ground, removed his legal firearm from his holster, and then fired 10 shots into his back while he was pinned. Stephen Miller calls a nurse an assassin before the scene is even cleared. Kristi Noem calls an execution defensive while the video shows the opposite. They treat the law like a weapon they own rather than a standard they follow. They don't want you to think. They want you to submit to the narrative. When power reaches this level of ego, it doesn't just ignore the truth. It tries to kill it so there is no evidence left. This might seem one-sided to some, but the pattern is undeniable. Power doesn't create a new person, it just removes the consequence of being a bad one. It is the ultimate unmasking. We think power is something people get, but in reality, the delusion of power is something that gets them. It is a mask that eventually becomes the face.